Thank you everyone for having us today. My name is Susan Kaspari. I'm the people partner, or people partner is another term for HR, the HR manager for the Texas Account Group. And I put a presentation together for you today, and I am joined by my colleagues Shannon Plum and Saysha Robinson, and I'm very happy to have them on the call with us. So I'm going to share my screen. I've been with IGT about 13 years. I started in Rhode Island, where their corporate headquarters were. That was about 9 years. And at that point, my boss at the time said, "Would you like to relocate to Texas?" And I said, "Yeehaw." And here I am. So let me get to the presentation. And I think we're supposed to have about 20 people, but I'd like to keep it open for questions as we go through. So if you want to, and I'm going to keep myself in the mode where I have notes. So, because if I go to full presentation mode, I won't be able to see if anybody has their hand raised or has a question. So feel free to ask questions, or you can wait till the end, and that's fine too. And thank you. Well, let me share my screen here. Okay. And let me know when you can see it.
Looks good.
Okay. Now I don't see it on my main screen, so I'm going to I have two screens, so I'm going to a little bit be talking to the side, but I'm still here. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about acing a remote or a virtual job interview. Okay, and I put this together with an agenda that includes, we're going to talk about what your recruiter does, or your point of contact. Then we're going to talk about the technology aspect of the interview, lights, camera, action, job interview preparation, dressing for success, and then Q&A. Okay, so it's really important. Your first impression, and it just happens all the time, no matter what. Your first impression with people is always instantaneous, and it can be harder to change after the first impression. So you want to really put your best foot forward, especially in a job interview. And how much you prepare for this interview really equals your desire for that particular role. Okay, the two go together. Okay, so let's talk about your recruiter or your point of contact, whoever you are working with to get you set up for this interview. Okay, so the recruiter's job is to vet candidates. So there may be a lot of candidates for any particular position. Let's say it's for a marketing assistant. The recruiter's job is going to be to minimize the pool. So they're going to try to present the absolute best candidates to the hiring manager. So they're vetting out and not in, which at first I thought was a pretty interesting, well, it is an interesting way to look at it, but they're trying to find the one candidate who's going to be able to fill that spot, because you only need one. Okay, so the recruiter is going to give you information about the company, and they should be able to tell you about the culture. They're going to explain what the process is. They're going to ask you for any information that they need. They're going to tell you who's on the hiring team. They should be explaining to you the roles and the expectations for the interview process. And the more you get along and really begin to sync with the recruiter, the better it is for you, because the recruiter is really gonna push for you to get that job. So just so you know, if you start talking with the recruiter and they start getting friendly and, well, this is how I started here, and this is what happened with me, and if they start telling you things like, yeah, this guy's kind of a tough interview, but if you talk about these kind of things, the more tips you get like that, the better off you are with the process, and the better aligned you are with the recruiter too. So the more you get from the recruiter, the better off you're going to be prepared. And just remember, so this, if you don't get some information you need from the recruiter, just ask, because if you like to know a certain thing about the company and you haven't heard from the recruiter, or you haven't been able to learn it on your own, just ask the recruiter for help. Okay.
So
Are you talking, Shannon? Because you're muted.
I was. Sorry. There's a good question that came in about
Okay.
working with a recruiter. Let me see if I can see the chat. And so, I know what you're talking about is from our perspective, through our organization, we have recruiters who are out seeking potential candidates to come to us. But the question is, I've never worked with a recruiter. How do I get in touch with one?
Okay. Okay, good question. So there's various ways to apply for positions. You can do them off of Indeed, all the search engines. Um, and anywhere, you apply for a position, you're going to be contacted by someone who's going to talk to you about setting up time for the interview and getting you going with all the things that we just discussed. What do you need to know? They'll ask you questions. They're going to try to vet you. They're going to try to find out if you're the right person, if you have enough experience, if you seem like you would be a good fit. So how do you get in touch with the recruiter? The recruiter generally is going to make contact with you for the role. There are certain times when, if you are trying to find a job at some company and you happen to know the name of the recruiter, like a friend of yours works there, if your friend or whoever your contact is able to put you in touch with a recruiter, that's how you would reach the recruiter. But generally speaking, the recruiter is the one who's reaching out to you after you've applied and expressed interest in a position. You think that answered? You think we're good? Okay. All right. So let's move on to technology. So you see, I'm sitting in my home. I've got a couple, I'm set up on my laptop. I'm in another room in the house. What you'll want to do, especially with so many interviews being done virtually nowadays, with COVID, and also it's just more expeditious to do video calls with recruiters and hiring managers. They will give you, most times they will give you, or it'll be a relatively well-known video product. They're going to give you the link to be able to get into the call, just like we did today. Okay, so when you get these tools from the recruiter or whoever your point of contact is, you're going to want to make sure that you have the internet connection that you're going to need to power the call. Okay, and just know that when you're on a video call, it takes more power, more internet, more data, more speed, more warp, or whatever that word is, to manage a call with video than it is with just audio. So make sure you have a good internet connection. Download the program that they gave you. Today we're using Zoom, right? We use Microsoft Teams at IGT. Make sure that if you have a bad connection, an example of a bad connection is if somebody freezes on the call, then you know that their internet was interrupted. What would you do if I'm on the call and somehow I get interrupted, or my call is disrupted? How do you handle that technical snafu? Really, the best way to navigate the technology landscape is to log on to whatever the recruiter or point of contact, wherever who's setting up this for you, and make sure you can get on. Get comfortable with it. Make sure your audio is working. What are you going to do, audio through your laptop, or do you have a separate speaker? Make sure that you are set up and you're comfortable getting on to the call. Okay. And really, it's really important to do a trial run. Have a friend get on a call with you. Am I sounding okay? Does it look okay? Are we working through? Just make sure that you're comfortable with the technology, because you want to make sure you're comfortable with technology, because an interview can be stressful anyway. So you want to make sure that this is one thing that you've covered off ahead of time. You've made sure it works, and you're going to be good to go. Okay. All right. We go to lights, camera, action.
And this is Saysha. I just do want to say one more thing there is
Sure.
it's okay to have a plan B. So if you are unsure if your internet is going to stay good, or if you anticipate maybe there's some work in the neighborhood or something's happening, ask that recruiter for a phone number as well. So if you do get cut off, you can go to your plan B and go and get right back into the interview, and it shows that you have thought ahead and that you are really trying to make sure you have everything mitigated so that you're putting your best foot forward. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask for an alternate contact if there are issues.
Thank you very much, Saysha. Okay, now let's go to lights, camera, and action. So like I said, I'm in a second bedroom in my house, and you can see the lighting looks okay, right? The lights, camera, action is really about how am I presenting myself on the call, okay? If you're sitting behind a window, like in this second picture here, you're just going to come off like a shadow. And so the people you're meeting with are not going to be able to see your face. Likewise, if you're sitting with the camera right in front of you, a big light in front of your face, it's going to shine on your face very brightly, and it's also like in this top picture, which is an extreme picture, but it's also not a great look. It's not going to be how you want to present yourself. Okay, so face a window instead of a wall. Have the light source behind you, but not such a great or on your side, so that it doesn't blind you out. Okay, no clutter in your background. I've just got a couple pictures on my wall, and just make it a very simple background, just like a plant, a lamp. Not any things that are going to take away from you. You don't want a distracting background. Okay. Pay attention to how you look when you especially do this trial run. Are you using your hands a lot? Are you pointing a lot? Are you moving around a lot? Just try to stay still. If it helps, if you have a little sticky note, you can put it right beside the camera on your laptop. The laptop would be easier than a phone and better to use, I think, for an interview, because it's going to make you look at that picture of that, put a little smiley face on there. Okay, be aware of your facial expressions and posture. It also helps to talk in front of a mirror. If you're in front of the mirror, just watch how you talk, watch how you look, and say, okay, I think I want to change this up a little bit. I think I'd like to change that up a little bit. Get comfortable with how you look. Get comfortable with how you're looking on the call, because I can see myself on this call. You can all see me. I can see myself. It takes some people a little bit of time to get used to seeing themselves. So that's something else that you can practice with, is seeing yourself on the call. Okay. Since you are on a video call, just pause between the questions, or give yourself a little space between what you're saying to make sure that either the person who's interviewing you has finished their sentence, or that you're finished with your thought. Okay. And this is a bit of a funny one. I knew someone who, when they were on video calls, they looked at the camera like a mirror, and they would fix their hair and fix their lipstick and look at their face. The camera is not a mirror. The camera is your way to explain why you're the best candidate to the hiring manager or whoever you're meeting with. Okay. Make sure you're all prepared before you're in front of the camera, but the camera is not a mirror. Okay. And the last picture, this bottom picture, now this is a good background. It's plain, it's attractive, and we can see this candidate very clearly. Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay. All right. So also think about your camera angle. Okay. It's best if you position your camera slightly above your face as opposed to slightly too low, okay? So if you look at on the right-hand side here, this first person, this candidate's picture on the top, his camera is a bit too low, okay? We can see up his nose, okay? We don't want to see up somebody's nose. The second one here, his camera is too high too, but and so it doesn't have a real friendly tone to it. So just really think about, you know, where your camera is, as where, you know, and how it's looking at your face. And then this person on the bottom, there's not enough light, right? So we can't see him very well. There are such things, and Zoom has it, but I don't have it downloaded myself. And Saysha was very resourceful to get the IGT background on herself really quickly. I would have liked to have done it quick too. I'm not resourceful like Saysha, I might say. So on this top here, this person in the blue polka dot, she is somehow, she has two screens on here. But I think it's just, you know, there's different ways a person can look, okay? This picture right here, that's a very nice background. It's neutral. It's just a little bit of office supplies, and sitting behind this would not detract from you as the candidate. This is an example, this bottom right one is an example of a blurred background. At work with IGT, I use a blurred background quite a bit. So it would show what you see, but it's going to be blurred. So you'll see like color, but not so much any detail. And this is an example, the little girl here, that's an example of what a blurred background looks like. So it just takes whatever is behind you and blurs it so it's not distracting. Okay. Let's move on to the dress for success part. So now when you've talked with the recruiter, you should have an idea of what the vibe is going to be like in this company just by talking to the recruiter, because the recruiter is a representative for that company. So, you know, is it straight laced? Is it a finance company that maybe might be more formal than a Google, maybe? So what is the dress code? It should be appropriate to the interview. Okay. Whatever vibe you get from the recruiter, and also in doing your research, you know, did you look up the website? Did you read about them? Did you check out people's profiles on LinkedIn? So you should have a list of the people that you're going to be interviewing with. How do they appear on LinkedIn? Or is there other way on social media that you can look them up and find something out about them? So you're going to want to get an idea of the vibe for the company and then dress to that vibe. Okay, so it's because this makes you look like you're going to fit in, and that's what you're trying to do is show how you're the right candidate for this job. So avoid super bright colors and prints. Again, it's kind of about distracting yourself, and you want everything to be pulled in on you and what your talents are and your accomplishments and what you bring to the table. So, you know, avoid wearing something, you know, flashy prints or something that may detract from the recruiter or the interviewers looking at you. Okay. There's what are called, oh shoot, and I can't remember the name of that. The jewel colors is what I'm looking for. The really pretty yellows and the red sapphire, blue plum, emerald, those are nice choices. There are some colors that may wash you out. I think we all kind of have an idea of the colors that would wash us out. So really think about what you're putting on. Again, just take a look in the mirror. Have somebody take a picture of you when you're doing your dry run with your trial with a friend or someone in your family. See how you look on camera with what you've picked out. Neutral colors or gray colors are always very nice. Jewelry should be at a minimum, but tasteful. Your hair, just neat and clean. Okay. And again, just take a snapshot of yourself to see what you look like. These are what are called the jewel colors, these colors on the side. They're very vibrant color, like a little bit goes a long way. And these would be your neutrals. These are all very nice colors. And if you were to pick a neutral with maybe a, a scarf or, a little pop of color, that would be pretty. I also think, I think when you mix like that, it also looks professional. Okay. All right. So I've touched on this a little bit, but let's go into it again. So when you have talked with the recruiter, make sure, what do you have for preparation? What do you know about the company? What has the recruiter given you that can help you learn about the company? Maybe it's a report. Maybe it's a financial report. Maybe it's a report about the department that you're looking at joining. So read it and really, understand what you're going to be talking about with the recruiter or the interviewer. Okay. Look at the website, study up again on with who you're going to be interviewing with. Look them up on LinkedIn. One thing I would also say is make sure you know how to say their names properly. So my name is Susan Kaspari. I say Susan Kaspari, and that's what I want to be called. Like, so I don't go by Sue, I go by Susan. And so if you are, unless somebody says, oh, please call me Jim, and their name is James, then call them James, okay? And make sure you know how to say their last name as well. Don't be afraid to ask questions during the interview. Especially if it's an add-on question to a topic you've already talked about, it really shows interest. If you are, if you're talking about a certain set of issues that for instance, maybe the interviewer has asked you about, and then you can ask some questions and follow on. It's a very much a sign of being engaged in the interview. Okay. It is okay to pause during the interview if you want to get your thoughts together, but just, keep yourself going. Okay. And this was, I thought this was really interesting. I haven't seen this with anybody before, but a lot of times if you're able to show your work, a lot of times you might take some of your work into a physical interview, but if you can show it online, that's just fantastic, because it shows you're able to work with the technology and they can actually see your work while you're interviewing. I think it's actually even better, I would say, than trying to show your work after the interview, like sending your work to somebody after the interview. Take the time during the interview and just show them everything you got. Okay. Always have questions at the interview, and especially at the end of the interview. The interviewers always expect questions at the end. They expect to know that you're engaged and that you've heard what they're saying, and they expect questions. And not just about benefits, especially if you're talking to the interview people, the people you are either going to be working with or on their staff or a member of their team. I would recommend not talking about benefits, and especially not pay, but keep it to the work, okay? The questions about pay and benefits should be talked about with the recruiter, okay? And writing thank you notes is always a really, really good way to just top it off, okay? The thank you notes can be in email, really. I think email, because email, you'll be sending them off as soon as possible. If you send them, well, and especially if you do send them by snail mail, with people working remotely, they may not even get them. But make sure you have the email addresses from the recruiter or whoever your point of contact is, and write thank you notes, and write individual thank you notes to the people you've talked with. This, if you talk with the first person about data, then, make sure you're addressing data in your thank you note. If you're talking to the second person about statistics, make sure that you're talking about statistics and what you learned from the interview and what you bring to the table. So personalized thank you notes are very important, I think, too.
Susan, we have a
Yes.
couple of questions that have come
Okay.
in that would be appropriate to ask. And I'm sorry, I'm on my laptop, so you can only see my fingers as I move from side to side. I'm sorry about that. There was a question earlier that was about what happens when the recruiter gives you false information about the interview. Meaning, like, if the recruiter explains to you that this will be a behavioral interview, but really it ends up being more of a technical interview. How should you handle a situation like that?
Okay. Well, I think recruiters try to give you the best information they can. And sometimes the interviewing team can change direction. So, it's difficult to change. It's difficult to change direction. What I would say is, well, for one thing, I would say is if you're in a behavioral interview, that's going to be about providing examples of your work, which is, I would say, loosely tied to technology. So in your preparation, just be prepared for the gamut. Everything you know about the job and what they're looking for and the skills that they say they need, just prepare as best you can to be able to answer the questions. And never let them see a sweat. Just go with the flow. And if you need to take a pause to put your thoughts together because it's different than what you expected, then just say, I'm thinking on your question. That's a very good question, and give yourself just a couple, 2 to 3 seconds or so to put your thoughts together. But you got to be prepared for some of the unexpected, because they may change things on you. I don't see it happen very often, but it can. Is there another one, Shannon?
Yes, this one's a little bit different, but it goes along the lines where an individual has applied for a position, been interviewed, and were turned down. However, they noticed that the position was reposted at a later date. And the question is, would it be okay to contact the original interviewer to ask about the job again? Like asking about specifics as to, what happened, why they were turned down, or should they just reapply? What would be a good avenue to pursue in that situation?
I think in that situation, I think I would call a recruiter. But I give some thought to, hopefully, recruiters don't always give you a lot of feedback about why it didn't work. In fact, most of the time they don't give you much for detail. Really, they don't, unless you specifically ask. And you have to specifically ask to get it. And sometimes they're just going to say, there was a more qualified candidate. But I think sometimes you can sense maybe what, and it may be that you were a fantastic candidate, but this other candidate just had a little more. Okay. So what I would do, I would call the recruiter and I would say, I see the position is posted again. I'm still very interested, and be prepared to talk about, in hindsight, you always think about some things. Maybe I should have brought this up, or, I think I know a little bit more about this and I could have talked about it. What I would do is I would offer up to the recruiter, I've given it some thought, and there's some things that I would have liked to have added. Can I get another shot? And I would do it. The worst is, they're passing on you as a candidate and they're moving elsewhere, but you're not going to know till you try. So I would do it.
And Susan, I want to add to that. During the interview process, and this is a kind of a little tip and trick, when you're actually interviewing and the interview is over, asking that interviewer or interviewers, is there anything that you have learned or don't know yet about me that would keep me from moving forward in this process? So there's some opportunity at that point to get those clarifications made. right? To maybe there was a misunderstanding on somebody's belief of your skills or abilities, or they didn't get the answer they wanted. So you can employ that technique during the interview process, and hopefully, you may have to come back later, like Susan said, and look for that. But there are some kind of ways to ask for the job without being seemingly aggressive, right? Or to look for ways to provide clarifications or overcome some things that they may have misunderstood before you move on to the next, or before you're disqualified and you don't understand why.
Very good point. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I just wanted to add some fun in here. So if we look at these pictures, there's definitely something wrong with, well, at least quite a few of them, right? This one on the top left, it's dark and we're looking up her nose, right? Not a good look. This one is really just about any of these distractions you can have while you're interviewing. You want to make sure your space is clean, that you're not interrupted, and that that your family knows that you need some uninterrupted time because you're going into an interview. This one, I tell you what, this isn't bad, right? This guy here, it's not bad, except that if I were him, I'd put my laptop and I put a bunch of books under my laptop, because he's having to look down. So he's not even with the camera. But other than that, he looks good. He's prepared. He's got a good background. And of course, this one here, there's nothing wrong with him, right? This one, I don't know how many are familiar with, there's been some cases in the news of, I think, some people having some employment troubles with not wearing the appropriate clothing below the waist. So this guy's ready for his interview. His background looks okay. He looks like he's doing okay with his camera angle, but let's just hope he doesn't need to get up, right? That would kind of change things up for him. And this is just such an interesting example of the camera angle. So this woman, so this means her camera angle is below her, and see how it's not making her, it's not a nice smooth look, right? And here she has the camera more even with her face, and the lighting is better, and she has to improve the lighting because she's got some lighting either in front of her or on a desk, and she's not looking like she's uncomfortable too. Okay. And this is just a reminder for all of us on the call that confidence looks in a lot of different ways, right? We just present our best selves. And for those of us who are on business calls a lot during the day, as you may have noticed from experience, people get tired during virtual meetings a lot quicker than face-to-face meetings. So your job interview may be shorter than you expect, and don't be put off. If this is the case, it's not you, it's technology. And that's the end of my presentation.